Awesome, and we're live. Welcome back, folks, to yet another session with the product folks. Seeing a lot of familiar faces today. Of that series, but a little different. That's why we're calling it the 101 series. Today we have a session with Nishant on marketplaces. Smarth will probably share more details about that and the agenda for today. But like I said, welcome back. I'll give you for folks who are joining us new. I'll just give you a quick intro into the community and then hand it over. So the product folks, as you guys know, is a volunteer-driven community of product managers, product marketers, product designers, and enthusiasts. We've been running a bunch of events for the last 2 years now, and a bunch of resources. So if you're looking to break into product, do check out our teardown series, Learn PM with.me, which is a set of curated resources for free.
Okay, guess we lost Suhas. Anyway, I'll just pick up from there. So, yeah, so welcome to the event, everyone. We are so glad to host Nishant today. And I'll just pick up from, by the way, okay, hi Suhas. Suhas is back.
Right.
So, Suhas, go ahead. I think.
Yeah, I think you guys lost me. We were sharing the series that we have of breaking into PM. That is where we've been interviewing a bunch of APMs to share tactical experiences of how they've broken into companies like Flipkart, for example. Make my trip. So check that out on the YouTube channel. Smart, is my voice echoing by any chance?
Yeah, that it was. It's better now.
It's better now.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll just wrap that up, maybe not too long, but a bunch of initiatives for early stage PMs. We've also started a certain amount of sessions for later stage people. So in case you're mid-stage into your career, do check out our Slack channel. We have weekly AMAs, and that's growing. We have almost 3,000 members there now. That's probably it. We also have a conference coming up, and we've just recently launched the community fund. So do check that out. Lots and lots of interesting sessions lined up thanks to Smarth and Parth. I think Parth is on the chat section. Smarth is on the screen in front of you. But without further ado, I'll hand it over to Smarth to intro our speaker for today as well as walk you through the workshop agenda for today. I'll see you guys at the later part of this session.
Awesome. Thanks, Suhas. And again, very warm welcome to everyone who's there with us. So today's session is all about marketplaces. This is our third event, as Suhas mentioned in the workshop series. Now, to set things in context, I just want you all, whoever's there right now, want you all to go back to your earliest childhood memory of what a market is, right? When your parents or your siblings said that they're going to the market, or there were, of course, a lot of things that were happening around the marketplace. Let's just go down that memory lane. Close your eyes if you want to, don't if you do not want to, and spend a few seconds manifesting that memory in your head, the earliest childhood memory of a market. What do you remember? A physical area with probably lots of shops, showrooms, big and small, highly clustered physical zone of commercial activity, right? Just dive deeper. What were the kind of goods people were buying? What were the kind of goods you were buying, or your family were buying, or whoever that you went with? Toys, if it's the earliest memory. Clothes, a lot of it. Fashion stuff, footwear, a lot of that surely. Vegetables, if that was one of the places as well. Dry fruits, and then a lot of little eateries to end the Sunday shopping spree. And so all of that was within a very small radius. Now just move forward in time a bit. Think of the time when the concept of malls came in as something very new to India, right? That was, of course, it started with all the major cities that we have here. And then this culture really expanded down to tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well now. Do you spot any major differences in how people spent their money then and how they do it now? There would be, certainly. Now, come back to reality, and I ask you a very simple question. what is a marketplace? How do you define a marketplace? So think of your answer, write it down if you want to. See, this is important because in the next 1 hour, we're going to talk mainly about digital marketplaces because, of course, that's the order of the day. Commerce is going digital, and I think that's a good thing. But having a basic original definition of a marketplace in your head, I think it's pretty important for the next 1 hour, especially. So just yeah, keep that mindset. Now here's the stuff that we'll be covering. Nishant takes everyone through his journey in product and tech. At various organizations and companies that he has worked with, and at the same time, he shares the lessons and learnings of building a marketplace because he has done that a lot. So that's the first thing. Then the next thing is we build a comparison between first generation and second generation marketplaces. Now if you are in the business of building a marketplace, B2B or retail, it doesn't really matter, or if you want to get in, right, how do you measure success? And if you are in this business, when do you know that it's time to scale up? If you thought that the answer to this question is like from day one, you're in for a surprise. Anyway, I'll stop right here because I'm not the guest. Nishant is. He is the expert here. And a very brief intro for Nishant as well. So he is he's currently working as a senior director of PM product management at Flipkart. Of course, an ex Ola, ex PayPal guy, and huge names there. So that's been his journey. A lot of years behind his career as well. And we'll end this with a little interactive Q&A on the product aspects of e-commerce marketplace. Of course, we'll source questions from the audience, which is you guys. So keep sending in those questions. And yeah, over to you, Nishant. We are excited to have you.
Hey, thanks so much for warming up the idea about marketplaces. And thank you for having me here. Good evening, guys. Good morning, good afternoon to people who are not in India. I'm very excited to be here, and it's fantastic to see such a awesome response for online marketplaces. I didn't know that there will be so many people who would be willing to know about it, and, and I've been a student of this field for a long, long time, and I'm here looking forward to share my learnings with you all. Most of these learnings have come from me trying and failing, so to say. So all you PMs and budding PMs and entrepreneurs, the biggest lesson, of course, I'm going to take you through marketplace lessons, whatever I learned. The biggest lesson is to never give up. So be a constant learner, be a constant student of this field. And I was just trying to understand the audience here. I believe that we have a good mix of PMs, good mix of entrepreneurs, ex-entrepreneurs, people who are trying to build marketplaces, or maybe we're building marketplaces. So sit back and relax. I'll take you through the learnings. It might become slightly domain heavy. So please, I would request Suhas and Samarth to keep me honest here. If it's becoming too domain centric, then I'll retract for sure. Let me just quickly present my screen. All right, I believe you guys can see my screen. Yeah, so let's start with the definition, right? I think we got the idea of a marketplace, but more importantly, what it does, right? What it creates for the ecosystem. And if you were to see the way when you get the demand and supply together and they do transactions, effectively you are creating those efficiencies of removing any kind of information gap between supply and demand. Before so the online marketplaces like eBay and Amazon, uh, there was Walmart, and let's say the bigger ones like Walmart, of course, were one of the bigger ones. And even if you were to backtrack that, you had malls, and then you had your mandis. So these marketplaces have evolved, and right from your nearest subsidy market to what you are seeing right now, let's say Ola and Uber, all of these are marketplaces. And fundamentally, what they're doing is to get the demand and supply mismatch reduced. And when I'll talk to you about the lessons and the objective of marketplaces, I'm guessing you will appreciate that the power and what they can do for all of us. I'll just quickly take you through the evolution of marketplaces. Most of you would be aware of this. So the online goods marketplaces, the ones like that you're reading in front of you, eBay, Taobao, Amazon. If you were to take a stab at them, right? How exactly do they? If I were to classify all of them, uh, they are they are very easily bucketed into two large buckets, right? The first one is the open ones, right? The one which scale fast. The ones that you saw in red are the ones like eBay. They are unmanaged, they scale fast. At the same time, they do compromise on the customer and seller experience, which the managed ones like Amazon and Tmall, they do that. So, for example, for your reference, Flipkart is a managed marketplace. Um, Quicker and eBay are the open marketplaces. Um, the beauty of open are they're self-correcting in nature, which means that it is left to the buyers and sellers to make sure that there are um, the better sellers and the better buyers get to transact, and the ones who are not so good, they fall behind. And that's exactly how they correct themselves. However, the managed ones, that onus is with the platform, where you would have sophisticated decision making algorithms to, let's say, which demand should meet which supply and which buyer should meet which seller. And obviously, you can by how it sounds, open and unmanaged are democratic in nature, right? Whereas managed at times have this fear or rather apprehension that they could go from a managed one to an administered one, which could be detrimental to the entire concept of marketplace. Now, as we move forward, right? So this is where in the year of 1996, 1997 is when eBay, Amazon came, and then these marketplaces dominated for the close to next to 10 years. But after then, since then, we have seen the second generation online marketplaces, which we also called as people marketplaces. Now, there's a difference here as well. If you can see the red ones and the orange ones. Um, Obviously, the red ones that you see here are the ones who are more um, horizontal in nature, which means that these are places where you are able to, let's say, fulfill different kind of services, where the one in orange are more vertical in nature. Now, this is how you can differentiate the new marketplaces that you have. Obviously, the horizontal ones have this power of being one-stop destination for everything, which it has its own flaw of having too much of choices. It also has a flaw of that you you basically cannot you cannot have a specific workflow. For example, if you are trying to book an Ola or an Uber, it is meant to do one thing, which is fine to suffice your travel need. Now, if you were to think that the same place you would have also had not just your travel need, but let's say your service need of servicing your appliances. Now, that's exactly what is a vertical player and versus a different between a vertical player and a horizontal players. The horizontal players, as you can imagine, you get to engage with the customers many a times. So if you're starting up a marketplace and you have thinking that I want to create a marketplace where, let's say, people can really find electrician, let's say, for example. Now, what would, if someone were to ask you, would you resist yourself from just being serving the home appliances need of the customer, or will you go furthermore? So that's where I think you can think through that. If I were to go vertical, I will have only one shot. Even if I fail, let's say to not do electrician, but I could do something else. Versus if I were to do horizontal, I get to do multiple. I get to try multiple times, and I may be able to serve the customer in more than one ways. But the problem of the horizontal ones are that they have liquidity concerns, because you might burn a lot of money while you are scaling up your marketplaces, whereas verticals, to start with, when you start, they generally have lesser liquidity concerns. Now, as I go into the lesson and learnings, well, what I have done here for you is that I have intertwined my journey, my life, as to how I have gone about learning about marketplaces with the journey of what I learned from each and every, rather, failure, or let's say a success. Yeah. The first lesson, it's a very easy one. We'll start easy and then we will go to the difficult one. Sellers are invariably easy to get, and the buyers are the ones who are the difficult ones to get. Um, I started my product management journey and marketplace journey way back in 2007 with something called as tumbhi.com. Tumbhi, for people who don't speak Hindi, is you too. It's like you too can become a star. With that intent, it was a marketplace for artists, art seekers, and art lovers. Um, I was working back then with Anurag Kashyap and Kalki. Um, it was an attempt to transform the Bollywood industry. What I thought that I could seriously create a magic wherein you could discover the any kind of artist anywhere from India. You just need not go to the entertainment capital, which is Mumbai. Back then, this marketplace scaled up to 1,500 artists. Well, by the way, there was no app back then. It used to be tumbi.com. Um, I had some solid artworks. So these artworks were like short films, um, models putting their portfolios, lyricists putting their writing artworks, and then I had digital artworks, digital paintings. So it was a culmination of multiple art. And the intent was that if I can get all of these artists together, uh, who are in this case the sellers, I would be able to create the magic in which the buyer will come and they can choose, and you can easily discover the artist sitting from your home with the help of your laptop. Um, Unfortunately, I just got one art seeker, so I just couldn't get any kind of buyer on board. But there are multiple reasons. Obviously, this industry goes through a problem of cartelization. This industry has its own challenges of where will they go to discover art. But the biggest challenge was that there's too much of supply and very less demand. Thanks to what TikTok and YouTube have done, they have broken there, and now there is enough, rather, places for you to showcase yourself. But back then, as you can see, there was nothing. You could go to movies or just about it. In all this process, what I also learned, and I think this is for all you for all you marketplaces who are working on marketplaces, is that there's something called as network agnostic value. I'll explain that in a minute. And what it means is that, so when I started this marketplaces, you can imagine I had a lot of artists coming to me. There was not enough transactions happening any which ways, but still they were coming, and they were have spending their time, and they were happy putting their artworks. For what reason? I think this is more like a retrospective learning that I had created something called as a network agnostic value, which means that without even any transactions, people would love to come over and put down their artwork and see somebody else's artwork. And guys, this can be your critical mode when if your transactions are happening or not happening, independent of that. Something like this was also exploited by Airbnb, because initially people were not like using Airbnb like anything. So what hosts were doing back then, whether they were going to someone else's apartment, someone else's listing of the place that they're putting on rent, and they were going through that. They were enjoying those photos. They were getting some ideas. They were commenting on those. Now, the transactions can wait, they will happen eventually, right? But more importantly, the magic that this can do for you is immense. It can create that critical mode for you later when your transactions happen. Second, well, it's tough to get buyers, but even if you get them, making them transact is definitely very tough. And my idea to you all of you is that it's always important to pivot than being patient about what we have created. A mistake that a lot of new PMs and new entrepreneurs do. They get too much associated with the idea or with the product, and they forget the customer. And it happened to me as well. And this is my startup that I did in 2014-ish, 14, 15. Yeah, 14, 13, 14. It's called Easy Price. It was a price comparison marketplace where I could show you the online prices of Amazon, Flipkart. But what I could also do is that get you the offline prices for you from your local store. So let's say you want to buy a new phone. It's a Samsung Galaxy S3 was very famous back then. I would show you prices of real-time prices of Flipkart, Snapdeal, Amazon, and also from the nearest retailer who is selling that. And guess what? Invariably, these retailers were beating the prices of the online players. And there was instant fulfillment. Within 30 minutes, you could get the phone. Within 30 minutes, you get the best price for a TV. Within 30 minutes, you get the best price of whatever you're looking for. Um, well, there were very few completed transactions. Now, if I go deep into that, there were multiple reasons. It's very difficult to keep the customer engaged because for people who are comparing prices and who are really into price comparison, they don't make a choice or they don't make a decision to buy something immediately. They really take some time. For example, I'm comparing a phone right now, which I would buy 3 months from now, let's say when I get my bonus, which means that I had to engage him, keep all the hooks on for all those 3 months when I've acquired that customer. And I was, by the way, fighting that time with Amazon and Flipkart and Snapdeal, trying to get customers for myself. And then exclusive happened. I don't know how many of you remember back then, Moto G and Moto X happened back then. It was exclusive deals. And oh boy, it hit me like anything. So my advice to you is that, first of all, as I said, pivot fast, don't wait. More importantly, speed of execution is your only friend. And this is what I take back. And when in your startup days as a founder, the only friend of yours, apart from your co-founder, is your speed. Launch your MVP fast, like really, really fast. Don't just wait for a lot of traction or a lot of, let's say, a lot of thinking. Don't do overthinking. Just go with it. Maybe start with just a WhatsApp group, but launch fast. And that's exactly what will make you have enough runway, because the candle starts burning, guys. So you need to really pivot. You really need to get that uh, your traction right. And for that, you need to experiment multiple times. Third one, scale only once the network effects kick in. Right now, for all those people who don't understand network effects, I can, after the program, I can send you a link where you can go through what exactly network effects mean. Some people also confuse it with product market fit, which is more true for a product. For marketplaces, we call it network effects. It's very simply put, yeah, and I would just simplify it for now before I go into the depth of this. It's like this, okay? When your customers start liking your product and they not just are the collectively what they are doing for you, and by being on the marketplace, they are increasing the value of the end of the customers who are yet to come in. That is what network effect is all about. And I just did not wait for it when I was doing Ola Store. So this was right after Easy Price. I joined, so Bhavesh was kind enough to give me this opportunity to build a hyperlocal marketplace for grocery. We were working with players like MK Ahmed, if you're from Bangalore, and Namdhari and Nilgiris of the world. Those were my sellers, and I was leveraging Ola's huge supply of bikers and autos and taxis to do the fulfillment. It was a different app, by the way. And the claim to fame was get your grocery in 30 minutes faster than whatever you're seeing right now, which is promised by Swiggy. and we did well. We were getting good transactions. We were doing well. But what we had not uh, thought of in detail was, are the customers really satisfied with our service? We were really giving some good fast speeds to the customer. Like that's what the DNA of Ola, right? And we have everything fast. But somewhere we just missed the bus on our assumptions on what, let's say, if you were to order something, let's say if you were to order a bottle of sauce, and then if I don't have that particular brand, let's say you want to have Heinz sauce, and if can I replace that with the Maggi sauce, which is your behavior. If you go to your store and if you don't find Heinz sauce, you would rather just go and pick up your Maggi sauce bottle. But in online, people don't expect that. Whatever has been ordered has to be fulfilled. And that was our Achilles heel. We couldn't, back then there was not deep integration with these players, because these players like Namdaris of the world, they were yet to integrate technology in their stores. So it was slightly ahead of the curve. Having said that, we also took one thing for granted, which was whatever we have created, the magic in Ola cabs, we could just simply replicate that in Ola store, meaning that I've written a word here which is called cross-site network effect. Think of this like when google.com, whatever goodness you get from google.com, Google was able to bring in on Gmail or on YouTube after the acquisition, or with it. And by the way, they could do the magic for Gmail, it could do the magic for Google Chat, but not for Google Plus. So the lesson that I learned is that don't take it, that if you can. And by the way, we had solved that problem of the customers very beautifully, going from Ola Cabs app to the Ola Store app. But still, don't take that for granted. You just cannot have that cross site going on for you if you don't have the right network effect kicking in for you. You don't have the right product market fit with you. And that's why, and by the way, we really tried hard to solve these problems. And then if I were to go to the next one, Ola had to rightly shut this down because uh, Uber had entered by then. And that brings to me the next lesson, okay? The very famous war between Ola and Uber. And the lesson that I take away from there, and it's for all, because it's a very important lesson, because and I really enjoyed that journey when Ola and Uber were really fighting each other tooth and nail. The lesson is that a two-sided local marketplace is expensive to scale. Um, Two-sided meaning that you have drivers on one side and let's say you have customers on the other side. But it's okay to burn, and it's okay to burn, by the way, because when you are scaling it, it will be expensive. Right? The same war happened in Lyft versus Uber in the US, and it was happening in India as well with Uber and Ola. It's all right. It's okay to burn, right? But it's okay to acquire, be it customer or be it driver, because as you can see, as and when the supply starts becoming more and more scarce, because you will keep on attaching more and more supply with you. A supply here is, let's say, in the case of Ola, is the drivers, right? Uh, every incremental supply that you're gonna add will be very difficult to get. It will be extremely expensive to get because it will come at a huge cost. So the lesson is that it's okay to burn to acquire. That's okay, you can burn, but it's not okay to retain. So how do you retain then? So you are right now fighting with Uber, kind of a mammoth, which has its own beautiful product of allocation and pricing. It has really cracked the UX and all of those things which the customer like. In terms of driver, it is throwing money at you at the problem statement to get the drivers on their side. And the principle says that it's okay to burn to acquire, but not to retain, which means that whatever customers you are getting, first of all, there is a supply constraint. So you cannot satisfy each and every customer. You people are not so okay using, let's say, a shared vehicle wherein you can have four customers going in one vehicle. People still want a cab for themselves. And by the way, this is the time frame of 2016, 17, guys, if you remember, 16, 15, 16, 17, yeah, 16, 17, yeah. And the cab fares were really quite, and then back then there was a, so every time at 7 p.m., end of the office, you open your Ola and Uber, and you will find ETAs of 30 minutes, 25 minutes, and you will like, what is this? There's no supply available. So what do you do then? So the principle that you can't burn to retain the customer, then customers would go away, right? And that's where we did something called as marketplace management, which is where we lock in some preferred customers and some preferred drivers, and that sum is a huge sum. It's not like a sum, and you make sure that at least that supply is satisfied and that customer is satisfied and is getting the cab, or that driver is making his earnings enough. Now it's hard to comprehend that, to do that via operation. You can't do it operation. It has to be done through product, because every driver will have its own earnings. Every customer will have his own expectation of ETA, when to get picked up, when not to get picked up, when exactly will he come and open the app. Let's say I'm going at 7 p.m. versus I'm going at 6 p.m. versus I'm going at 4 p.m. So I need to take care of demand shaping and take care of supply shaping. And all of this, what you are not creating is what you are actually playing around is with the level playing field. You will create a kind of an ecosystem in which some drivers would be preferred more than the other drivers. And same way, some customers would be preferred more than the others, right? And that is fundamentally against the philosophy of any marketplace, because you are no more creating a level playing field. You are favoring one over the other. But well, in what they say, right? When at war, everything is fair. Everything is fair in love and war, and that's exactly what it is. When you have such a huge problem of supply constraint, then you have to do this. It's more like a you do that out of desperation, because if there was enough supply for the demand, then the optimization function is always b equal to s, which means that you will strive for ensuring that you have enough demand and for the supply, and d equal to s will be your equation for allocation, d equal to s will be your equation for pricing. So by the way, when you do peak pricing or when you do lean pricing, um, uh, and hence that's where the question is, that how much should I manage the allocation. Now take example of eBay, right, or Flipkart. The pricing is not managed by the sellers. You get what you see, right? And the seller is putting his pricing whatever he wants to, and then you guys buy. But in case of Ola and Uber, that's managed. Is that good? Is that okay? Why should you do that? That's a question to be asked. But and when should you do that? So a lot of unopened questions. If we get time, we'll when we do the workshop, we'll go into depth of it. But this is what it is, that at war, when you are at war, you have a supply constraint. Prioritize your few customers, prioritize your few drivers. It is coming at a cost of creating a level playing field, but that's okay. And next, and the last and the most important lesson, right? It's about trust, and we have heard about it many a times, right? Um, Trust is very difficult to define actually as a word, because it's more like an output and not like an input. It's a mix of hope and fear both, and as it's actually a bridge between the known and the unknown, right? And in fact, at times it only exists when when there is no transparency. It's like somebody saying that, don't worry, I'll take care of it, right? I cannot tell you how will I take care of it, but I'll take care of it. That's trust. You're trusting him to do something for you. It isn't built, right? And marketplaces can't build. I mean, you can't just have a recipe for trust and you can give that. It is actually earned. And my past 3 years, in fact, has all been about learning this thing, that how important trust is, and how exactly do you earn that trust of your buyers and sellers for demand and supply is the most important thing. And now I think I have nailed it. I believe that these two are, integrity and empathy, are the most important levers to build trust, because trust, it becomes key when someone is vulnerable. Trust becomes key when things go wrong, right? When everything is hunky dory, everything is fine, there's no one to talk about trust, right? Only when things go wrong. Now think of things going wrong. things go wrong. Let's say in the case of Ola, right? Um, how do they go wrong? Driver cancels a ride, right? Whose fault it is? Let's say the platform, did I allocate the right driver to the right customer? It could be my fault. Is it driver's fault? He did not want to do such far a ride. Is it the customer's fault that he could not wait for such amount of time, and poor driver had to do some kind of a travel towards him before him or her, and before the customer cancels? So so that's where things have gone wrong. Now, how will you build trust on the platform? So let's say you come up with something called as cancellation fee. Does that make sense? Should you have a cancellation fee? What is the intent of cancellation fee? Well, ideally, there should be no cancellation fee, right? Cancellations can be there. Ideally, there should be no cancellations as well. You should be able to just do the best allocation for the customer and the driver. But things do go wrong. And in the end, the question to us is that, does transparency really lead to trust? And the answer to that, after really, really probing deep into this, is that no, it doesn't. In fact, trust thrives when there is no transparency. And trust is enabled by helping the customer, or in this case, the rider or the driver, when things go wrong. Hence, my advice to all the PMs is that in your marketplaces, disproportionately invest in adjudication and fair resolution. It's also called dispute resolution. PayPal did it, and I was fortunate enough to be the part of the dispute resolution team. eBay did it when things go wrong. How do you protect the customer or the seller? And even Ola did it, right? You need to, first of all, adjudicate. Adjudication means that who is at fault? And then, depending upon who's at fault, that's one thing, right? You figure out somebody is at fault, and sure, okay, fine. Now that's where the journey starts. That how many times should I be okay you making let's say a mistake? Me as a platform asking the customer or the driver, how many times? How should I train you? Should I tell you that you were doing before well and now you're not doing well, or should I tell you that? Well, there are 5 better drivers than you. You are at number 6. What works to their psyche? What attracts to their psyche? How do they choose to become better? Is it only about earnings, which build the trust on the platform, or is it more than that? All these questions. So I'm leaving you with more questions than answers, because we can do that when we go into details of everything. But the most important point that I figured out in the end was that uh, if you have the integrity in you, right? For example, you collect the cancellation fee from the customer, and let's say the customer did not make a mistake, or the driver did not make a mistake. What do you do with the fee? You return back to the customer, right? Or let's say if the driver made a mistake, you take the cancellation fee from him. Should you choose to give it to customer because the driver was wrong and the customer was right? All these things you should ask yourself. Am I building integrity? And integrity, I mean, we all know, right? It's behind the back is what matters, right? In front of you, no one would lie and cheat, but behind you, if someone will actually be will demonstrate that integrity, that's exactly how trust is built. So all you people who are doing your marketplaces, ask yourself that whenever I'm managing two sides of the equation, am I being truthful to both of them? And is my integrity being demonstrated? Am I playing with that? And the second one is empathy. So this goes back to my 2012 journey, 2012, when I when I just came out of PayPal, and then I joined Flipkart, and Sachin was kind enough to give me the opportunity to build the seller platform for Flipkart, which is the Flipkart marketplace. I was the lead PM for that, 2011, 12, 11, 12, 13, yeah, 11, 12, yeah. So you can imagine I just came out of the PayPal stint was small. I had a larger stint at Tumbi. I had never seen buyers in huge numbers, and when I came to Flipkart, I was like, oh boy, buyer is already a solved problem. There are millions of them already. And they were not sellers, right? Back then, Flipkart was the only seller on record. And then Flipkart started, I was told to build that seller platform, build that marketplace. So I started adding sellers, 100, 1,000, 10,000. And then sellers made mistakes, right? Sellers aren't as good as, let's say, what you expect you to do it when you do it your own thing. Back then, Flipkart was not a proper marketplace. So there was a comparison between what a seller does versus what Flipkart does. So imagine seller is also a part of Flipkart ecosystem, but people used to say, "Hey, Flipkart is as in having good service, and but not the sellers. Sellers are poor; they make mistakes." And my work was to evangelize this poor seller as a customer to the company. No one was like, "Hey, seller is anti-market," and marketplace is actually anti-customer. People had termed marketplaces as to be anti-customer for that matter. So I had to change that perception because the marketplace had the beauty of using the platform to give selection to the customer, something which you can't do. No matter how many big warehouses you create, there is enough selection in the world which will come from these sellers. But these sellers made mistakes, right? These sellers made mistakes and which led to poor customer experience. And the obvious answer back then was that throw them out. We don't need them. These guys are good for nothing. The empathy towards them was missing, and that's when so I made those mistakes, by the way. Okay, initially there was too much of pressure on the metrics. I myself had to let go a few sellers, right? And then I was like, no, this is not the right thing to do. And then when I look back at the decision, I'm like, oh boy, what is this? What did I do? And then that time itself, we started coming up with some imaginative, creative policies which help to actually get these sellers motivated and do the right things. So, for example, back then, we wanted them to do faster fulfillment. So for every promise day that they fulfill, they used to get some commission. They used to have some commission, which we used to take from them. And some sellers were delaying it, leading to cancellations and poor customer experience. So we simply said that if you will fulfill a day before what you promised, you will get a discount on your commission. And oh boy, it did the trick for all of us. That's just one way of telling. The larger point that I'm telling you here is that if you have a stick in place for your community, for your sellers, please have a carrot. Now, that carrot could be of any kind. Do not ever have a stick policy without the carrot. And this, as I have seen this problem many times, and many PMs make these mistakes. Many marketplaces make these mistakes. They come up with a stick policy. We'll let go of these users, but do you have the right carrot for your base, customer base, or whatever supply base or the buyer base to do the right thing? And you know how it will only come if you have empathy for your customers. Without having the right empathy for these guys, you will not be able to come up with this, because the most easiest thing is, and especially when you have supply excess, the most easiest thing is, and which you have for sellers in India, is to let them go. And doing the difficult thing is to keep them with you, train them, make them better, design the right policies which attract, which make them feel valued to the platform, and also they make them better as what the business they are right now. So the lesson here is that have a carrot, have a carrot to go with this. So I almost come to the end of my presentation. What marketplaces actually do, right? And I don't know how many of you have heard the word perfect competition. The best way to understand, to make you understand, is that monopoly, right? Think of an environment which is totally opposite of monopoly. That's perfect competition. It's the reciprocal of monopoly. And if you were to look at the classical definition of a perfect competition, the firms sell identical product, like how you do it in a sabji mandi, right? All firms are price takers. No one can control the market price. They all have small market share. No one has got a maximum market share. Uh, Buyers have complete knowledge about what is being sold and what are the specs of that. And the industry is totally, it's totally, the industry is allowing you to come in and come out at any point of time. So there is no barrier to enter or to exit. Um, that is perfect competition, and eBay really strive for it.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just complete that. Yeah. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, yes, we can.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah. So the perfect competition is what you need to strive for, right? And don't think this is anti-innovation. Okay, this is not communistic thinking. This is not what it is, right? What it means is that when you try to scale towards infinite demand and infinite supply, this would be a reality. You cannot have a monopoly, and you should not have a monopoly, because in fact monopoly at times is anti-innovation. And the guiding factors or the guiding principles for reaching this perfect competition, if I were to summarize for a marketplace, are these three. Okay, earn the trust of the buyers and sellers. Um, Strive for level playing field for all sellers. Level playing field that you do not differentiate one seller over the other for non-obvious reasons or for non-transparent reasons. And most importantly, promote the economic empowerment for sellers, which means that sellers should make livelihood. They should not be there for making losses. These three will help you to to ensure that you take the right step in managing your marketplace. And once these three are sorted, is when you should push the pedal on maximizing the gains, because then gains will all come automatically. Look at how Airbnb is one classical example of a perfect competition, striving for perfect competition. Even eBay, for that matter, strived for perfect competition. And you maximize the gains only when you are satisfied that you are okay with these three factors, and you believe that you have created the magic for your sellers and buyers. Well, I have some workshop where I'll just quickly leave you with questions, guys. These are no answers. When I do this in face-to-face, or rather in a classroom setting, we could really go into depth of these questions and maybe try to answer them together. But just glance through them and write them down. We're not trying. We're
Sorry,
not trying to.
Nishant, so sorry. What I was thinking was we still have another 10 minutes. What we could do is guide them. Like you mentioned, maybe in these 10 minutes, we could give them, 30 seconds between the questions. So everyone can actually put it down on paper. And then what we can do is maybe some of them can share snapshots on social and tag you. Would love to hear if you can give them feedback post the session as well, if that works.
Oh yeah, that works. Yeah,
So
I would love
let's share that out if you guys are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can take a screenshot of this if you want to take a stab at it.
Yeah.
I've already gone through the principles with you. I have taken you through my learnings. Hopefully, you'll apply them and then try to answer these questions. Um, I'll just explain the question to you in detail. For example, when I say, how would you prioritize a seller? So, which means that, let's say you want to buy a phone for yourself. For example, the new iPhone 10, 11, whatever it is. You go to that phone page and then you're about to make a choice. That this is the phone I want to buy. But then you start seeing so many sellers selling that phone. All these sellers have different pricing, different return policy, different speeds, whatnot, right? And then now you as a marketplace, let's say I've been told to prioritize one seller right on the top, with the assumption that that the seller on top would always get the um, best number of hits and the maximum conversion, and the sellers down below would be slightly below that. Yeah. Now take a stab at it, right? How would you prioritize this algorithm? What would you consider? Because this algorithm can do everything for the company. By the way, it's so powerful because you are practically choosing which customer will be buying from which seller. And then if you were to think about the logic that itself is complex. Think about what would you do with this logic? Would you be transparent with this? Would you tell your sellers that this is what the logic, this is how it works? Or would you not be? The second thing is that how would you build trust that this logic is creating a level playing field? It is not a bias towards one. It is for your good. It is doing the right thing for customer. How would you ensure that? Let's say by not being transparent, how would you ensure that? And would you even ever choose to monetize this logic? Because this becomes a secret sauce that which seller comes on top. Even Amazon used to have it called as buy now button. So it's a perfect way to apply all the principles that you have learned so far. The second one is take any shared transportation marketplace like Ola or Uber or anything you can think of. How would you decide on the allotment strategy? The allotment here means that you open the app, you look at you choose your category of let's say you want to take a Ola Mini or a Ola Prime or Ola Micro, and then you go ahead and then let's say you choose the and that ride now. Which driver should I allot, right? Now think of what happens behind the scenes, right? Many things can happen. First of all, you could see that we make you wait for 1 minute at times, right? What do we do for that 1 minute? Why are we waiting? No, while we, what exactly is happening behind the scenes? Um, what all calculation is happening? Do we check um, how much money have the drivers around you made so far? How much more money should they make for the day? Now you are trying to act like God because you can choose to delight one customer. Should I give, let's say, ABC customer a better ETA versus a DEF customer? Would you do that? Would you give preference to a driver who hasn't got enough bookings? Let's say a driver popped up in just while you were searching. He hasn't got a single booking since morning. Would you give him a preference? Would you try to catch the max earnings of your drivers? For example, this driver has already made 1,000 rupees. Let's not give it to him. Would you do that? Poor guy is actually working day and night. He's already spent 10 hours on the road, or 14 hours, or 15 hours. And then you have some drivers who haven't made enough money. And then every driver has got a different rating to itself. Uh, so many questions are there, right? And how exactly do you answer them? What should be your decision framework? How should you go about Mm, what should be your maximizing function? What should be your constraints? Um, what is the intent of this logic? Think about it. Think about these problems. Well, that's exactly what I've been doing for the past when I was in Ola for 2, 3 years and then in Flipkart managing last mile. This is what I've been doing all my life, and I've been really enjoying this. And I hope that you got the benefit of from whatever I shared with you. I would end it at this note, okay? For that the principles that we talked about, right? Um, they have been passed on from what, let's say, uh, somebody was doing in eBay or Amazon. These principles are very important for having a functioning marketplace. And at any point of time when we play with these principles or we try to deviate from them, they really create some kind of imbalance. So, as product managers, I would request you to get that balance into the equation and make sure that we really build the marketplaces which scale well, which do the right thing for your customers, and most importantly, make money for the company as well, which we're working for. Thank you.
Wow. Uh, Great. I mean, this was super exciting. We're just going through the comments,
Yeah.
while speaking, Nishant, and I think you should have a look at those too when you get the chance.
Actually,
Uh,
why don't you take 10 seconds? We'll go through the questions meanwhile, but you can just take 10 seconds to go through the live chat. I'm sure you'll enjoy the feedback. And like people have actually like enjoyed this session, Nishan. Thanks so much for that primer. I think it was a wonderful way. I mean, I know it's very hard to virtually do the workshop format that you generally do offline, but I think thanks so much for sharing those insights. I think we have a couple of more minutes for questions, tons of them in the questions tab. Um, Smart will probably kick that off, but yeah, just wanted to say thanks
yeah.
for sharing all that.
Thank you.
All right. So, and I also just one small comment. I mean, you mentioned burn to acquire, users, not to retain them, and I think that was something that I loved, from this. And also, one more little thing is there were a lot of questions that you raised, and we were just talking about that in the comments when you came up with that second last slide, which had like those five fundamental questions. And I think that was super awesome. So I'm sure a lot of people would have taken a screenshot there. I did too. So yeah, that was probably the best part for me as well. So as we can probably shift, run to the questions like to the Q&A.
Yeah,
And
let's do that.
yeah, do you want to take the first one?
I'll do that. I'll do that. Actually, this was on my list anyway. We had hosted Lenny for like another marketplace session. So I think one of the core questions there as well was, marketplaces are generally like chicken and egg problems, right? Especially you worked on both sides. You started off from scratch. You joined maybe Ola, Uber, and kicked off 0 to 1, as well as like you mentioned, you already had running where you had to boost or make strengthen the marketplace there. So Tarun asks here, what is your personal experience while solving these chicken and egg problems on both sides, right? Whenever it is a very, very early stage, they say, okay, you need to start with supply. But what are some tactical examples that have worked for you, from say the Ola experience or some stuff that you've seen in your past that you think, people building marketplaces today can learn from?
Yeah, so I can start with tumbi.com. Okay, that was my first experiment with a marketplace, and I had to attract artists to my ecosystem, right? And the vision of that product was that anyone can become an artist, right? Right from people who have, let's say, learned Bharatnatyam for 5 years, right? And who are right now doing their own thing, or maybe they're homemakers, or there are a lot of folks who learn tabla, and then that passion has gone. They're not pursuing it anyway. They can't display, they can't showcase their art to anyone, right? Um, and and here I am trying to build these artists, right? Now, how do you go about building artists, right? And mm, the tactical choice that I took was to go to Mumbai every day almost. Spend time with in CCDs, trying to meet in Andheri and CCD and all of those places where these artists hang out. Spend time with them, understand what exactly is going on in their mind. Um, just open your laptop, make them register then and there. Um, really understand what are their challenges, uh, and then doing the same magic on Facebook. So then I created few profiles, okay, and yeah, they were fake profiles, right? And they were profiles which were of struggling artists who were trying to share their stories with each other. Because I had figured out that I cannot scale this. I cannot be in Mumbai all the time, and I can't even have my field force back then. And I was all learning that time. So I had figured out something works in these artists, okay, that the artist community, when they listen to someone else's problem statement, they are able to associate that very well with them. And that magic, I created that in Facebook, and that helped me to get more artists. It helped me to get more art seekers as well, and not really art seekers. I would say art lovers, because then you would see people getting attracted to what they're discussing, where are they discussing, and then I created some tools in tumbi.com. For example, people could go ahead and write about their art, their about the art, and what exactly do they feel about that art, and people started liking it and enjoying it. And that's exactly how the network gets started. I think that's one example, right? Um, the other example of the chicken and egg is in easy price, right? I'll talk about that as well. In which I made a lot of mistakes there, frankly. But what I really learned from that experience was that uh, what works on customers, right? Because I was back then acquiring customers, competing with with Amazon and Flipkart, and I was burning 160, 170 rupees per customer on Facebook marketing. and I really had to get my each and every number right. That which customer am I acquiring? He should not just come and not get the right traction, or is not the right customer for the product. So I really made sure that my marketing is extremely crisp, and it's a cliche, right? We all say that, but when your ad will not work, or when you will not be able to get the right customer, because of pressures of investors, because of the pressure of whatever you see around, you would be tempted to do the wrong thing, or I'll say incorrect thing, or I would say rather you would try to dilute your proposition, or you would not stick to, you would let go these guardrails of what you are supposed to do, and doesn't work. You will get the wrong kind of customer, you will burn money, and then you will be you will be feeling that what the heck, what did I do then? So I would say that do not try to uh, do not try to change your marketing just because the customers or let's say or whoever is not responding well to your ad. If something you have to change is your product, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Pivot. Don't be patient with your product. Pivot than pivoting on marketing experiments. Pivot more on the product, pivot more on the business than pivot on your marketing strategy. I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there are a bunch of other questions also on similar lines, right? For example, you mentioned at Flipkart, I think you probably had some amount of funding, so you could go through the entire burn and then retain cycle. But what happens when you're bootstrapping and starting off very, very early? How do you, like, before you raise that first round, how do you burn to acquire? Or is there some other strategy to kick off? I think three more questions that I can see, but on that same line, to continuation of the chicken and egg, which side do you start off with? Like you mentioned, these two were great examples. But just to add on to that, maybe just to close that set of questions, would be how do
Yeah.
you tackle that?
So you always start with the sellers.
Okay,
That you never go for the buyers first, because buyers will just go away. They will not find any value in it. They will go away. So you have to start with sellers. See if you can create a network agnostic value, like how I said in my speech and my session. um, and just make sure that you burn first on these guys, if at all you have to burn.
right.
Hopefully you should not, but don't burn getting biased to start.
Got it. But when you go to the sellers, what is the value prop there in case you don't have buyers on your platform? Say you start with sellers, they'll also be like, "मैं क्यों करूँ? Like, why do I do this with you? Because like you don't even have anyone, right?"
uh,
So, what is like a real world situation? How do you tackle that?
yeah, so pinch them. That's what I use, the word pinch them. So I'll tell you what. So easy price, I went to retailers around me, forum mall के आसपास छोटी दुकानें. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, sir, customer ही नहीं आया सुबह से. What are you doing? You're playing Candy Crush. You can bloody play Candy Crush on your phone, but you can't respond to a customer query if I get you one. They're like, क्या sir, कोई फायदा नहीं है. Even if someone responds, they will not come and buy from me. Flipkart, Amazon, ये वो. Pinch them, really pinch them that you come here, okay? Any which ways you're bloody wasting your time, okay? And
Got it. No,
and
that's
that
interesting.
actually works. So it worked for me, by the way. So you're like, oh yeah, so and then their Chotu is like doing nothing any which way, right? So he's the afternoon time. I'm like, just rather be on this platform and respond to a customer query, and if you can beat the price of Flipkart, that customer is yours. They're like,
Nice.
yeah, so, okay.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. No, thanks for sharing that. That probably covers like a bunch of questions because, like, I think a couple of founders who are building in that space. But guys, in case you want like deeper insights, Nishant had shared his email ID. Nishant, I'll probably share your social handles here as well. So if in case someone wants to reach out to you, some of them are specific, so I don't think that will be useful for the entire lot. But guys, do definitely reach out or just post it on social. Smart, you could go next. Pick one that you like, and then I'll come back with the rapid fire.
Sounds
I'm
good.
more responsive on email, guys, but yeah, but you can tag
Okay,
me on Twitter also.
perfect, perfect.
Cool.
I'll share that.
So there's one more question that I spotted, and I've been looking at it for a while now. It's from Vishal Darak, CEO. Standardization, and there's a huge credit need. Textiles is of course one of those industries that Vishal is talking about, but of course there would be other industries as well there.
So I can give you an example. Yeah, see, I have no idea of this industry, but I know the example. Okay, and the theory says that. So a bit of theory gyan, okay, a caveat. So one of the ways of creating network effect is via pivoting on standardization. And one good example is Adobe, PDF, or or that the entire let's say the focus of Adobe tools rather or photo PSD for that matter, Photoshop, right? So much of focus on standardization led that to people to use those products forcibly, and that's exactly how network effect started. Now, if you say that in your industry standardization is a problem, I suggest you to take this audacious bet of solving for that. It would take time, but it would be rewarding. And talk because there are the haves and there are the have-nots, right? And then if you can make them, you can do matchmaking for them, nothing like it. Um, I'm not too sure about the legal hurdles in your industry, but this is one way to think of it, right? Think of a marketplace where you can get these haves and have-not together, and see if you can create some magic.
Awesome. Guys, lots more questions coming through, but we're 10 minutes over time. I know Nishant had mentioned that he can take a bunch of more questions, but just don't want to miss out on the usual rapid fire that we do in most of these sessions. I think for the regulars, you probably know the flow, and maybe the last 5 minutes, we'd love to end with that, Nishant. I think that'll be super interesting for our crowd. We'll also do one thing. We do get a download of these questions, so maybe some of them might tag you on social or drop you an email, but if not, we'll also try to compile this and maybe share it on our Slack channel so that we could continue this conversation there. Thanks so much for adding these questions. I think a couple of very interesting ones. We'll be sure to answer them. But just to end Saturday evening on a fun note, so Nishant, our three-part rapid fire. This is going to be real quick. So whatever comes to the top of your mind first. First question is around, you've been in the space for a long time, and I'm sure there are some early stage startups that you are really looking at that come to you for advice. So what are three startups, early stage preferably, that people have not really heard about, or in case, even in whichever you like, that you think are super interesting in 2021?
Clubhouse.
Okay.
I think that's the in thing right now.
Yeah.
I was just reading the other day. It is not competing with Facebook and LinkedIn. It is competing with Spotify.
Interesting.
It's taking it is trying to take away your ear space.
Very interesting. No true.
So that's one. Couple of fintech startups are doing very well. The early stage ones, I don't recollect the name. I think I can go look back at my notes and come back. But there's a team which is trying to create something like this, create some kind of a marketplace where people can take some financing tips from each other. And that I think would be very interesting to see doing it. I think Grow started like that. And then it pivoted into e-commerce investment company, right? Where you can now buy mutual funds like buying a phone. But they initially started as a place where the haves and have-nots come together and they really understand each other, and then they can share their best practices. So there's one company which is doing something similar. I forgot the name. Then these two come to my mind right now. Yeah.
Sure, perfect. Next one that we generally ask is, who are some folks who have really inspired you in your journey? It could be peers, it could be mentors, but some folks that all of us could, follow and learn from, or even if they aren't on social, we'll try getting them maybe for a session, or folks here can reach out if they are in that space. Who are some that you'd love to give a shout out to?
Yeah. So the first one goes to LC Singh. I don't know how
Okay.
many of you would know him.
Uh-huh.
So this guy is a veteran in was a veteran in TCS, right now doing his own thing. Um, and he has been running a company for the past 10 years. He was CEO of Persistent. He must be now 70 years plus, man. But this guy uh, taught me the value of customer experience.
Okay.
And he is on LinkedIn. He keeps on posting stuff. So maybe you should go through. I can just circulate that in the end of the session that about this guy. Uh, then the second person is Psyche. Psyche is a very famous guy in the startup industry. He helps a lot of startups. I got to work with him at Ola when he was coming in and I was going out back then, and that was extremely eye-opening to learn from him how to go about building teams, how to drive the right culture, how to how to be a leader. I think you
Yeah.
can. That's one guy which you can truly learn from. Sachin, many of you must be following him already. I've picked a lot of product management from him. Um, he's extremely good at it. Same, even Bhavesh, by the way. Bhavesh
Okay.
will be one of the best PMs ever. While we know
Yeah.
him for multiple reasons, but there can't be a better PM than Bhavesh.
Oh,
Then, um and then there's Vivek. I'll send you his LinkedIn profile. This guy is my mentor in terms of taking the right decisions with respect to professional life, what to do, what not to do. So there are people.
yeah.
I'll send the list to you guys, and you can just have a look and
Super,
you can follow
super.
them
We'll
as well.
circulate that. And guys, if you want to see Nishant moderate a PM chat between Sachin and Bhavesh, you know what to do. Spam him like on social, such that he gets free in the next quarter, not this quarter. I know it's the financial and Q1's always a little hard. You know to plan for the rest of the year. But if you there are 130 of us online right now. So you know what to do. Twitter is your game. Just go out there, tag Nishant, Bhavesh, and Sachin, and then we'll follow up to make sure that happens. But over to you guys. Like you need to help us in this. But yeah, jokes aside, I think Nishant to end this on a very light note, one that Smart and me love from. Although it's a little cliche, but some really interesting thoughts that come out. You've been in the industry for a couple of years now, and especially in product. If you could go back and give one piece of advice to a 25-year-old Nishant, what would that piece of advice be? I know this is contextual, but we just want to leave people with some food for thought.
Oh boy, 25-year-old Nishant, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting question. Okay. Um, so a 25-year-old PM was a budding PM that time. He wanted to be a PM, and um, that PM was a very restless guy. That at that age, I was so restless. In fact, I actually doubted myself more than ever. So the one piece of advice I would have told Nishant, if I were to, that don't doubt yourself. Uh, Trust your instincts, trust your strengths, trust your strength of being a balanced leader. Do not think that your thought process is different from others, and it will not help you. And you might have to imitate someone. Don't try to do that. I did not do it, thankfully, but I used to get a lot of urge to do that. So I would definitely tell myself that trust yourself more, be more confident about yourself.
Very interesting. Yeah, I know. I think all of us, a lot of us, go through that cycle, right? Of um, I forgot the term. Not inferiority complex exactly, but like the belief, right? You see so much going on,
Self doubt,
especially
yeah,
self doubt.
self doubt,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, especially like social media just adds on to all of it.
true.
So yeah, no, thanks for that piece.
So well,
And
I remember back then, right? So I met a creative designer in 2007, and then even Flipkart reached out to them. So Sachin just started. I started Tumbi. He started Flipkart, and then 5 years later when we met, so he was that time he told me I'm working with a company called as Flipkart. It is getting to sell some books online. I'm like, who would buy books? Are you kidding me? And um, and then he said, no, I don't think so. There's a problem statement for getting discovery of artists. Okay, book selling is still a better business. So I'm like, and back then itself, I started having a self doubt. Oh, is it? I should be selling books, is it? What am I doing with my career here? Trying to sell artists and art seekers. So I think, yeah, it's all about confidence. Just you should
Yeah,
have a lot
yeah.
of confidence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think some of them pointed out. I think imposter syndrome was the word I was looking for. And no, thanks for keeping it so real, Nishant. I think I love this chat. I think over 100 people still live on this. We'll definitely follow up with you on that mega chat that we'll try organizing if everyone supports us today. But no, thank you so much for sharing this primer with us. Network marketplaces and network effects 101. A lot of folks have been asking us for the deck. So are you open to sharing that deck? Maybe we'll reach out to you and
I shall make some corrections and then send it to you guys if that's okay with
super.
you.
Super. Maybe you could add on some of these questions also. We'll send over the questions to you. If you could just add like an FAQ towards the end, and we'll circulate that.
I'll do that. Thank you.
But perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, Nishant. I think it was a lovely chat. And with that, we'll probably end this session. Two ideas that I'll leave. We have a couple of interesting initiatives coming up. Guys, we just launched the community fund on Product Hunt. We'll add that link to the chat section. Do look at that and give us some feedback. Nishant, if you could meanwhile also share your email ID in the chat section. I think a lot of folks would like to reach out to you. Also, guys, if you've been following the product folks, I think we are at a time right now where we are looking for a couple of volunteers, have a couple of interesting sessions coming up. We're launching one or two new initiatives, another conference coming up for us, and we're looking to do something deeper in the outcome space. So we'd love to get some more feedback on that. If you guys are interested, our DMs on Twitter are open. We'll be adding a recording of this and we'll mail the deck that Nishant shares to all of you. But in case you want to catch the past recordings, past workshop, I did share the YouTube link in the chat section. So do check that out. And if there's anything that we could help you guys anytime in the product space, with just a DM away on Twitter, most active on Twitter. I definitely encourage you guys to check out the Teardown series. I think that has been super impactful. People have been able to, transition as well. I think one of our winners just cracked the Grofers interview and is directly there. So I think that is one initiative of ours that has really picked up and personally one of my favorites. So yep, you guys have Nishant's Twitter as well as email. You know what to do. We'll see you guys again next week. And we have some very interesting guests lined up. We have Gibson Biddle from ex Netflix CPO. He's lined up. We have Jackie Bavaro of the Cracking the PM interview book series. She's famous for that as well as a Google PM, ex Google PM. We have a bunch of sessions with a lot of director level folks from India as well who are lined up. So next few weekends of yours are definitely booked with TPF. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much, Nishant, once again, and thanks so much, Smart. Smart's net, I think, was giving a problem in between, but in case, Smart, you're back, if you'd like to just give our crowd a shout out.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this was an amazing session. Thank you so much, guys. And keep sending your questions across. You have Nishant's access, and I won't repeat anything that was said. So I guess he covered everything. And yeah, have a great weekend.
Super. Thanks so much, Nishant. Thanks so much, Smart. I'll see you guys.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening with you patiently. Thank you.
It was amazing. See you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.